Good afternoon, Greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. And we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're streaming live on YouTube here. We got a ton of stuff to cover. Tim C's from our team's coming on. He went to the wrong Bala Plaza, apparently, and he's on the way now. So he'll be here momentarily. But first, we're going to talk about what to expect from the real estate market for the rest of the year, now that we're at like the midway point in the year. Maybe not fiscally for real estate, but the midway point from a calendar perspective. And the Resi Club and BAM, they did a really interesting article, Sarah. You fit into this category. I want to get your takes on it. We'll cover that in the second segment, how the top 1% of agents did 15% of the sales over the past 12 months, which is not surprising, but a pretty interesting statistic. So we'll get to that in a second, then we'll talk about Tim. But we're going to talk first about what to expect from the real estate market for the second half of the year. So before I get into the data and the predictions, what are you telling people? Because I'm sure you're getting this question all the time. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen in the third quarter? What's going to happen in the second half of the year? What are your predictions, Sarah, for the market as we head into the second half of 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends a little bit on if you're a buyer or a seller. But for, I always kind of open up with just like, we can't say with 100% certainty what is going to happen next. What we do know is, all the predictions are now lining up that rates are going to stay pretty steady with where they are. And, appreciation continues to go up for homes. So the longer you wait, the more expensive or the more it's going to cost you to get whatever home it is that you're kind of targeting. And there is still, I know we're kind of hitting that point in the year. We often talk about July 4th kind of being the time that people are check out. They do their vacations, yada, yada, yada. I've noticed over the course of the last month, like the number of showings and this doesn't track for every single house, but in general, like I think people started going on vacation a couple weeks ago. Like it's, their number of showings were down kind of across the board each week in May. But then you do have, like, you'll have properties that hit that are going to get a ton of activity, a ton of traction, and get under contract right away. So, I think you can't time the market, but it's not, if you're a buyer and you're out there looking, this could be an opportunity to slip in if you are around this week. And typically what we see out of buyers this week is they tend to be the more serious ones. If they're coming out the week of the 4th of July, they usually want to get a house.
I think we're going to make a t-shirt for you, Sarah, that says you can't time the market.
Yeah.
Maybe that can be our new slogan here. It's such great advice, and you may hear it all the time, but it's so right on because there's so many different things happening. I mean, you talk about that like one house that could have a ton of activity. You had a listing, you had 9 offers in over the weekend. I mean, some people would say you don't want to list this time of year. I do agree. People did start going on vacation really right after school started. Like I noticed a lot of families being in that world. Like they were like out the day after school ended. So that's a great observation on your part. I tend to agree with you in a couple facets. One is that we're still going to see a lot of activity depending on the house. It's really a case-by-case basis. At the same time, historically, we're going to see things maybe slow down a little bit the next 60 days. That's just what happens. At any given time in the greater Philadelphia area, 1/6 of the population could be gone, right? They're on vacation. So that's a great observation. What we're also seeing from a statistical standpoint locally, then we'll get into some of the larger numbers here on the national scale, is that just week over week, we get these weekly updates on what's happening in our market. So if you look at, compared to a year ago, new listings are up 11.6% compared to the same week and the same time ending June 30th, 2023. So we're seeing that new listings are up. We're seeing that active listings are up over 27% through the end of June, 27.1%. compared to last year, and this is for the greater Philadelphia area and for all of Bright, so it's a good sample size here. So we're seeing inventory grow. I see that continuing as we head into the second half of the year. We're also looking at purchase contracts for the entire Bright MLS. They're up 3.2% compared to this time last year. So kind of flat. That's going to be market by market. I am clear we're going to see more housing options as we continue to move ahead. We're also seeing cancel listings are up 32.9% compared to the same time last year. So that's another indicator. We're seeing the market kind of, I don't want to say slow down because I'm not clear the market is slow. It's still very robust when it comes to activity, just not as hot as it was. And that's what a lot of the national folks are predicting as well. So are you kind of seeing the same thing, that it's more of a brisk pace than a white hot pace?
Yes, I would say overall yes.
Okay, awesome. So that's what we're seeing. Here comes Tim. Looks like he made it here. Didn't get lost in Bala Kinwood. Here we are. You made it. Congratulations. Tim C's here from our team, everyone. We'll introduce him here in a second. Now, we also got some research from Altos Research, and they came out. Mike Simonson, he does these videos on Housing Wire. It's very interesting. They got a bunch of charts in the back. They talk about what's happening. So he goes on to say the last week of June is really the peak of the home buying season, which I do tend to agree with. I mean, people are, even this week, like I felt it today, like everyone's trying to get everything done so they can leave and go do something the rest of the week. So we start to see a seasonal decline, which I do agree with. And he's saying we're seeing listings slow nationally. There was just under 71,000 new listings unsold this past week, and that's down 1.5% from a week ago. And then there's some other stats that he puts in there. Pending sales were down slightly. Home prices may track lower in the next few weeks. Price reductions are climbing. So we saw 38% of homes had a price adjustment so far this year. That's up, not substantially, but up from a number that was in 2023 was 32%, so a 6% increase. So I think a lot of the data that we're talking about is backed up here on a national level as well. So how are you advising people with this? Like, hey, should I wait to put my home on the market? Should we wait till the fall? Like, that comes up now. When should I list? When should I buy? What are you telling to people where they're starting to kick around this idea of just not doing anything?
Yeah. I mean, first you have to get to the motivation, the timeline. When does somebody need something to happen for the next piece to fall into place? So if you're already under contract on your house and for like on the buy side, or you know that you want to be out actively looking, you know, you may want to go ahead and get your home up there, because how long do you want to carry two mortgages? If days on market are ticking up, it could, and it does take a little bit longer to get under contract in some cases. You need to account for that in the timeline and kind of build that in. So, you know, and if there is a little bit of a slowdown of listings that come to the market in the second half of the summer here, then that's a great time to get yours up. You don't want to pop up the exact same time that everybody else is listing their home.
I totally agree with that. We had this question come up. I was with Paul from our team on, I want to say Thursday afternoon, and they said, when's the best time to list my home? And you know what the answer is? When the neighbors aren't on the market.
Right.
You can't time it, but you know what the competition looks like. So every single real estate decision is going to be in a vacuum. So I mean, you have to look at what's happening in your segment of the market, and you know what options are out there. So looking at this report here, I mean, do you see anything surprising, Sarah? Because I think this Altos Research, they do a nice job with some lead indicators, so people can kind of expect what to see. And the Fed's been pretty clear; they're going to be holding on rates. So is that kind of how you see this market playing out? That we're going to get more of the same? I mean, what's your are they on the money? Is it too regional? What do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything that jumped out as shocking for what their predictions were here and kind of where the numbers are coming in at. I think it all kind of tracks.
So Tim, what do you think is going to happen in the market in the second half of the year?
Well, I think that inventory is still going to tick up a little bit, but I think it's just going to be business as usual. And then as we get closer to Thanksgiving and the holiday season, things are going to slow down as they usually do. But I don't see too much drastic happening unless hopefully nothing really bad happens. Just kind of leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. So and when what I look at here is we've got this election coming up as well, and historically when you look at elections, people end up still transacting during it, but there's going to be some hesitation. So you've been through one of these cycles. Do you think it's going to be any different this time around, or what do you see happening with the election coming up as well? Because I think that's another question that people are asking. Like, well, so-and-so gets elected. What's going to happen? And we're going to talk about this more as we get a little closer, especially coming off, the debate and some other things that have happened. So what do you think? How does the election play into all this?
I mean, I think that especially if right now we're still months away from the election.
Mhm.
If the election's coming up as in most cases, by the time the election rolls around, you would have listed and sold your home. So like, if you're concerned about something that's happening like that many months down the line when the entire transaction could have gone through and the whole process played out, if it's not the election, maybe it's something else that you'd be coming up with. Like, to me, that sounds like somebody who maybe isn't super motivated, which is fine. But, people do, like, whether or not it's an election year, people need to move. So the motivated, people that need to will, and transactions will still go through. And I think that we're far enough away from it right now that if that is a concern or a hesitation, you're already pretty far down the line from when you'd be ready to list, would be my thought.
I agree there. I also look at, we had the debate last week, and say what you want about the debate. There was a lot of comments about a lot of different things on that debate. What'd you say?
Handicaps.
Whatever you want to talk about there. So, yeah, handicap, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I look at the housing perspective, and you ready for my takeaway about housing?
Yes.
From the debate? So here it is. You ready? That's a takeaway. They didn't say anything about housing. It wasn't even mentioned, and it's a hot button issue. Housing affordability is the number one priority for Generation Z voters. 80% of all generations saying that it's going to factor into their voting decision. And in 7 swing states, including Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, a poll showed that housing affordability and availability came in as the 5th most important issue, tied with health care. And it wasn't even talked about, President Biden did mention it once at the 2:43 mark after a question, and he went, I'm not going to read the statement because it didn't make a lot of sense, to be very clear. And it said, we're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new housing units. We're going to make sure we reduce the price of housing. I mean, I don't know what the plan is to do any of that stuff.
Right.
I like building 2 million homes. I think that'd be great.
I don't think that'll happen overnight, though. That's going to take some planning and time.
For sure, and what you're going to run into is that there's going to be a lot of like local laws that get changed to build that many new homes, and I don't think it's even going to happen. But how do you reduce the price of housing? That's the free market. So, and there wasn't much more said besides that. So, if you look at this, and not to get political here, but if you look at like the issues at hand, you think the person that's in office would want to address this, or the person that wasn't in office would address it, and it didn't really come up. So it'll be interesting to see if this gets brought up, if there's another debate scheduled, which I think is questionable, but apparently there's one scheduled for September 10th at 9 o'clock. So we'll see if they talk about housing at all there, but it doesn't seem like it's even a priority for these people that are running for office, which is a little disappointing because we know it's a hot button issue for a lot of folks.
Right.
I mean, do you guys hear your clients talking about how, do they mention any of this stuff to you about the election and what's to come here?
Not so much about the election, but just the overall costs of not just housing, but everything's up. And with housing being one of the larger purchases you make in your entire life, that's a hot button issue. Exactly what you said. So it's kind of unfortunate that it wasn't touched on in more detail in the debates. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I would say occasionally it'll come up, but almost more as like an offhand comment, like, oh, and it's an election year, so, but not necessarily saying that that's going to overly factor into their decision. It just kind of is like mentioned on the side, is what I've had happen. Now, as we get closer, that could change.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I mean, there's not a lot of policies like in the 2008 election. There was like we're gonna have the first time home buyer tax credit and all these different things that are coming out. Biden had that plan about another tax credit. That's gone. I haven't heard anything about that whatsoever. So, I think we're going to kind of just see this. Hopefully, it gets brought up a little more. But I was a little surprised it didn't get addressed, given how hot button of an issue the economy is right now.
Right.
So, what about rates? Where do you think rates go in the second half of 2024?
I think we're going to stay in mid to upper sixes.
Mid to upper sixes.
Yeah, I would say I'm right there with you, mid to upper sixes. Maybe as we get closer to like November, December, they tick down to like 6.5. But I think that's probably right on the money where they are.
That's where a lot of the predictions are coming in. Fannie Mae, I know, revised their forecast. They said maybe 6.5 by the end of the year. As of today, now we're seeing locally like the perfect scenario is 6 and 7/8, meaning like good credit score, strong debt to income ratio. Nationally, the 30-year average for loans is coming in at 7.11%, according to Housing Wire's Mortgage Rates Center, up slightly from 7.08 a week ago. The 15 years obviously a little less. And we've seen the bond market, it's moved a little bit. The spreads have behaved, keeping rates from being higher than they would have if we had the 2023 mortgage spread levels. And I think what's happening here is the economy's been, like, people say the economy's resilient. With the economy being resilient, it's a little tough because you're seeing all the jobs numbers look strong, but I don't think it's quite as resilient as people think. Like there's a lot of mixed signals right now. So I tend to agree with you. I'm looking at the market. It's pretty much going to be the market we're in right now.
Yeah.
But I do see opportunity for buyers and sellers. So if you're a seller right now, I'm a little nervous about seeing inventory grow and continuing to wait things out if I got a place to go.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any sellers you're in communication with? You're having this conversation, or what are you two seeing?
You mean for people that are already on the market, or ones that are and like it hasn't
Both.
gotten under contract, or hesitating to get up there?
Both. I mean, I think that's real. Because some people hold out for their price, and the price is going to be the price. So
Right. I mean, I would say for people who are active on the market but have not gotten under contract yet, there's kind of like two different pieces that go with it. One, if they just went through a purchase on the buy side and had to be highly competitive and aggressive, and that's like what you're hearing about the market in general, is like this is what it takes to get a house. It is hard being then on the sell side if you don't immediately get flooded with all of the offers with all of the things. So if you're a couple days on the market and you don't have that perfect offer in yet, I don't think it's time to panic.
I agree with that.
There's people are out of town. I think oftentimes it's like something hits the market on a weekend. Sometimes people want to wait to see if it made it through the weekend before they're going to go in and like schedule showings for later the next week. Just so that if it is going to be a situation where there are going to be multiple offers and it's going to be, all of the things, they just want to wait to see if that period passes before they get in. So, I think not overly panicking too early on, but then you need to look at, are showings still being scheduled? What is the feedback saying? Is there something that we can adjust, or is it a unique property that we need to hold out for the right buyer to come through? And in that case, how else can we market it, and what else can we do to keep it kind of top of mind? For people who are wanting to list their home but are waiting for the right time, back to the classic, there is no timing the market.
Right.
We want to look and see, dig into the comps. How long did it take these like other comparable homes to sell? How long were they on the market? Did they have to do price reductions? And then just talking to them really about what numbers make sense and what would be the most effective listing strategy.
Mm-hmm. I think it's well said. And I mean, it's, the thing is, you just gotta have really like honest conversations with people, and the more you can communicate what we're talking about here, because there's a lot of like data and jargon in this economic world that we're living in. We're talking about rates and what the Fed's gonna do and all that, but if you can't explain it to someone in the way they can understand it, you're gonna have a really tough time helping them do what they want to do.
Right. Like there isn't a magical day that listed this day and then it all comes together. You know what I mean? It's like,
I wish there was. It'd make our
Right.
jobs a lot easier,
yeah,
right?
oh my gosh,
Great.
that'd be
We'll
amazing.
just wait for one perfect day.
Yeah, it's like no, this is the
Too
day. But so you just have to work with what you've got, and look at the data, figure out what their motivation is, what the timeline is, what numbers they need to hit, and then come up with a strategy.
That's the classic way to advise people. Hey, here's what's going on. We've got 3 options, right? You can have aspirational pricing, you can have pricing it right at value or pricing it below value to create an auction atmosphere. And just having that, going over those strategies can go a long way. What about buyers, Tim? So you're working with a lot of buyers. So I mean, what do you see as helping them understand where the market's going as we see inventory climb up? We're seeing rates kind of settled in. What are you telling them when they're trying to kind of figure this out here before we take a quick break?
Yeah, absolutely. So pretty much it's, going back to the motivation and timeline and everything. That's going to be super critical for them because I also think that buyers are also getting used to where the market has been for the last couple of months.
Mhm.
I think that they're starting to just be like, okay, well, here's what it is, and if we do need to move, then let's just go for it. There's no sense in timing the market because it's impossible, and then going back towards that is it's important. But just coaching them through the entire process, making sure that they have all of the knowledge, making sure that you're getting all of the comps for them, and making sure that they're locking into a rate that they feel comfortable with. Some people are different. Some people are going to be worried more about a bottom line, not breaking a bank. Other people are going to be worried on, oh, well, we need to move by this date because landlord is my lease is up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
It's each situation is very different, and I think tackling that in the light of, okay, every person's going to be different. You have to kind of mesh your strategies to that person. I think that that's super important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what ultimately this job comes down to, if you're trying to help people navigate a confusing market, is just help them understand the market so they can do what they want to do in the first place. No one says, I want to come in and I want to get the best rate at the best price. They're like, hey, I'm looking to buy a house. I'm looking to sell my property because of this whatever's going on. That's where professional guidance goes a long way. So that's really well said. And these trends will help you make better decisions as we move into the second half of the year. So why don't we take a quick break? We're going to come back and talk about how the top 1% of agents are doing 15% of the business. Crazy number there. Next on Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
In real estate, do you want control over your income? Whether you have
Nice
a
job,
license
Tim.
or not, call us today at
It's blown up over
610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com.
Yeah.
Join our team,
There was
the Tom Toole
an
Sales
agent
Group
that had called me
Remax
about
main line.
Deerfield on
For the best local
Friday,
mortgage
maybe.
service and great rates
was
on
like,
your
we're gonna
money,
put in an offer,
look
we
no
wanna get it
further
taken off
than
the market
Mortgage
before,
America. We've been
you know,
operating in the greater
these open houses.
Philadelphia
And then
area for
change of
40
heart.
years
Apparently it
with a
wasn't big
focus
enough for
on
those
smooth,
dogs,
easy
therefore.
access to
Then,
home purchases. Whether you're a first-time buyer,
but he called
upsizing
me,
or
he like called me then
downsizing,
later
or
that day
just
and was like, oh, we should drive
refinancing,
through
we have
by your
programs
Creek
for
Road
you.
listing
We
every
also
day,
have
like
closing cost
what's going on with
assistance
that,
programs
blah,
and
blah, blah.
access to
And he
subsidized
thought
interest
maybe his
rates.
sister and
Pre-approval
brother-in-law
is
would be a
free,
good fit for
no
it, but he
cost
just
or
messaged me
commitments.
this.
To learn more, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
I had a
We
good
always have a
talk with her
person
today.
available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized local
I
service
think you're
you
right. I'm
find
just,
at Mortgage
in
know.
general, surprised it hasn't sold.
I know, it's such a
The
cool
Tom
house.
Toole Sales Group is the
I don't
number
know
one
where you find water
Remax
from
team
views like
in
that.
Pennsylvania with over 165 million in volume for
lives on River Road.
2021.
My
I'm
neighbor
Tom
is
Toole,
friends
and
with
our
someone who
team
lives
has
there.
achieved that kind
We're
of
going to water
success by
skiing
being
in
a
Super
great
Bowl this
place
weekend. I'm
to
like,
work
that
with
is
and to
disgusting.
work
And
for.
like, they're
Yeah.
sending
We
me
know
video.
one
I'm like,
knows
I'm
greater
gonna
Philly
vomit
better than
right
we
now.
do.
Yeah.
We know real
Do you
estate,
remember when the
but more
school
importantly,
overflooded
we're
Vine
real
Street
people.
and they had
Oh,
We
yeah.
hire the
was it
best
Bree
agents
that
and
was
we
out
give
there
them
on a
all the
kayak?
tools to
No,
succeed.
there's people like
Even
going
our
on
brand
swimming
new
on
agents sell
676.
17 to
It's like, they
24
get like
homes a
tennis
year
shots afterwards.
because
Oh,
our
yeah.
team delivers the
Tons of
best
diseases.
experience in real estate. 1 minute. For better experience in
Water skiing
individuals,
scoop.
and we're a
Get
top
out of here,
1% real estate team in the
That's
country.
something else.
We call it
I
AAA
can see,
service.
like, the
We're your
roads,
advocate,
like,
ally,
right,
and
right.
advisor. Because
water
this
skiing.
isn't a transaction to us. It's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a
You guys
home,
are
call the
gross.
Tom
Yeah.
Toole Sales Group at Remax main line at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. That's Tom, Toole with an E.com.
You're right on the
Sell
river.
your home for more, and remember
It's
the
like a
real
dock
estate
in the
golden
roof
rule.
Yeah.
You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet.
Sure they have it.
PHA
I
is
haven't
not
saved.
important. We specialize in all residential mortgage programs.
Let's keep talking, Tim. You're doing
Time buyer
great.
programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at buy.
There's all the
Oh my gosh,
radios
I know,
out
it
there.
is an actual thing out there.
Welcome back to Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. He's Tim Sees. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to be talking about how the top 1% of agents make up 15% of home sales. Not surprising and still an incredible statistic. And then we're going to talk about Tim Sees and how he has been able to rock and roll here through the second quarter, selling a whole bunch of real estate. If you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with our team, you can do that with the link in the comments so we can help you with whatever real estate needs that you have. So the Resi Club, Lance Lambert's website, I definitely have like a data crush on Lance Lambert. He's very smart when it comes to real estate, gives you a lot of what you need. If you haven't checked out that site, it's resiclubanalytics.com. They had an article they put out, and then our friends over at BAM did, kind of repurposed it a little bit and shared it as well, that the top 1% of agents did 15% of the sales in the last 12 months. And if you look at some of these numbers, and it varies state to state, and I think that's kind of indicative of, what happens and how many agents there are and how big the state is. Some of them didn't have any statistics. Because there was like Alaska, Louisiana, Utah, Wyoming were excluded because they didn't have enough sales. So in Pennsylvania, 13% of all the agents did, or 13% of the business was done by 1% of the agents, which I found very fascinating. And if you look at the national number, it's 15%. But more importantly, you get to the top 5% of agents, that number trends at 34% nationally. And the top 20% of agents do 64% of the business, which I found very fascinating as well. Pennsylvania's a little lower than that. You got 13% of all the sales were done by the top 1% of agents, 33% by the top 5% of agents, and 61% by the top 20%. Does this number surprise you?
No, yeah.
Okay, well, tell us more. So, not surprised at the end of the segments. Tell us a little bit more about that. What doesn't surprise you about this?
Well, based off of the statistic that 85% of the agents that enter the business usually leave after 5 years anyway, that doesn't surprise me. So I feel like there's just a lot of, churning people in and churning people out. And I feel like after the COVID market happened, a whole flood of people came in thinking that they wanted to get their piece of the pie, which is, whatever, I guess, just muddying the waters for the agents who are doing the right work and the good work out there. But I think that now that we're coming into a more normalized market, of more looking a bit more like pre-COVID, it's you're seeing those fair weather realtors, jumping ship and saying maybe we don't come back in. So that doesn't surprise me because of that.
Yeah, I mean, with this being a business where you need to get transactions to settlement to get paid. There's only so long that you can go not doing that or only getting the occasional deal here and there.
Oh, yeah.
So those people are more likely than not going to fall out. Then once you are getting deals done and you are, getting listings, getting buyers under contract, you know what you're doing. Each deal that you do kind of brings a little bit more, even if you've been doing this for a long time, in many cases, every deal will kind of give you a new twist on something or something that you can then bring into the next transaction. And the more business that you do, and if you do a good job and your clients like you, the more likely you are to maybe be referred to have that one deal turn into multiples.
Yes.
So it kind of has like a spider effect or a web effect.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We know what you're saying. That was a good analogy there, Sarah.
Yeah.
And having that growth mindset too, to your point of, each deal is going to be a little bit different. You can learn something. My grandfather always told me this. There's something new to learn every single day. And if you have that mindset of okay, I'm going to be, 1% better the next day, or, oh, I know that this happened in this deal, it's not going to happen again because I had that experience. And having the, stick-to-itiveness of just driving through the hard times and keeping on when the times do get a little bit easier, I think that's what's really important. And I think in this time where a lot of people are getting out of the business because of it's getting a little tougher out there, I think that's huge opportunity for the knowledge brokers.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that everybody else would operate this way, but I know for me, up to like, if you get way too much on your plate, then you're no longer like operating in a super effective manner. But if you have too little going on, you're also not like, I don't do as good of a job. I do my best job when I have, a certain number of things going on at once, that your day's busy, but you have time to answer the questions and to do the things, but you're kind of like going through, and you're not you don't have time to hyper focus on some random little detail. I feel like when you've got too little going on, you're almost either overthinking things, over reaching out to people, or like stressing about something that you may or may not have any control over because it's the only thing that you have going on. So when you get to the point where you have multiple things that you're working on at once, I feel like I do better in that situation. Now, if all of a sudden you've got way too much on your plate, it's kind of like, oh my God. But up to a certain point, I feel like it makes things go smoother.
So that's really well said, because when you look at what how you balance things, right? And I think there's going to be some key factors to what differentiates. Forget the top 1%, but the top 20%. I think that's probably a realistic number. Tim, you mentioned the number of 87% of agents fail in the first 5 years. What is it? 75% are out in the first year, right? So
Crazy.
You look at that top 20%, and there's a lot of reasons for that. People think real estate's going to be easy. They think they can do it on the side. I mean, it's never like that. And this is any industry, not just real estate. One is going to be skill level, right? So talk about time management. So I think, Sarah, that's what you kind of hit on, and knowing your capacity, right? Role playing in scripts, knowing what to say, how to handle objections, how to make phone calls, how to nurture leads, how to communicate effectively. Obviously, selling homes, negotiating and closing sales, and following up with clients. All those things are going to be important. And if you're not able to manage your time to hit on every single one of those things, like, that's how to run a business. You can't just do one thing over and over and over again. So that's a really great point. You talked about market knowledge, right? And we're going over what these stats mean and predictions for the second half of the year. You got to have a deep knowledge of local market trends and cultivate that on a daily basis, or you're not really going to know the market at the local and national level. Then there's like your network of vendors and like other agents, what lenders you work with, what contractors, any local business owners. You talked about getting referrals and having that like spiderweb effect. Well, that's from having a good network, right? And that's going to be really critical. That's where you get repeat clients, you get referrals. I mean, and that's like the best client you can get. They're usually the easiest to work with, right? And then there's brand awareness and understanding how to market and get in front of people and how to execute. So if you're not doing all those things, you're probably not in the top 20%. And unfortunately, I think a lot of folks, they just think it's going to be really easy to sell real estate. It's just not. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. So you talk about some of the differentiating factors. What advice do you have for the people that maybe want to jump into that top 20%? Because we're at like the middle of the year. It's a good time to like evaluate your business and see how you're doing. What's worked for you too? Maybe, what advice would you have? You both had excellent second quarters, so I mean that goes a long way here.
Yeah, I mean, I would say advice is don't quit. Just keep going. I know when I first started, I didn't have a single deal until my third month, end of my third month in, and I was like, I was at the breaking point. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I was putting in work and I was putting in time, and nothing was happening. But then, the fruits of the labor really, bared fruit there afterwards, because I had 3 deals, and then it goes back to what you were saying earlier about having the keep rolling along, having that motivation. And I think it's easier to pick up when you have the motivation, or the momentum rather, going. I think that's stick-to-itiveness is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that both good things and bad things often come in like batches, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like, you can have, like, real estate is a emotional roller coaster ride, not just for the clients, but also for us agents, which, I mean, we can't show
we
our
have to
clients,
hide that in.
you want to, you don't want to always like show that, but you can have one day where, oh my gosh, this offer got accepted. Oh my gosh, this client that I've been trying to get in touch with forever has finally reached out, and now we're going to go look at all of these homes. And yes, this listing is finally getting activity, da, da, da. And then the next, the next day or the next week, this fell apart, that
Right.
happened,
Mhm.
this person goes to do. So you have to think beyond the day. I feel like you just have to like, do the things that you can control. And I always go back to just like try to stay positive. Both
Yeah.
like you have to with your clients, or else like why would they want to work with
Mhm.
you? And try to stay positive with yourself too, because it goes a long way.
I totally agree, especially with having that positive mindset, because if you fall into like a pit of despair, that's gonna rub off not only on your work, but your clients are gonna notice. They're gonna be like, what's going on here? I thought everything was cool,
Mm-hmm.
and that can raise concern.
Right. And clients pick up on a lot of little things,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like, so yeah.
You talk about staying positive. I remember this very clearly, Sarah. I think it was like the fall of 2020, right? It was probably like October or November, and I think
Yeah.
you had like 6 clients lose out on offers in like a matter of like 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
and you put 5 of them under contract the
Yeah.
next 30. And this is the month of December when everyone's like binge drinking eggnog and going to ugly sweat. They're just not paying attention to work, and you stayed so positive. Like what? Is that just natural? I mean, you're a very positive person. I've known you for a while, but did you have a hard time doing that? Because I think that's tough to go through, and when, especially when you have all these people losing out. I mean, they get upset.
Right. I mean, I would say like I hate giving people bad news.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would say for me the hardest part of that that week when it was just like we wrote good offers, but like nope, was having to over and over again deliver bad news to people. But I knew if they stuck with it, they would get the result that they were looking for. So like I knew that, and then just being able to like reiterate to them in a positive way, like, listen, it's okay that you are upset. Like this sucks,
Yeah.
but like we're gonna keep going. And then each one of the like that was great. Then like the next like over the course of the next few weeks, when like each of them got under contract, and honestly, I feel like for the house that was right for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, usually though, I think this is something people like. I'm a big believer that karma does play a factor. Like, and, everyone says, oh, "I wish I would have got that." Usually, they're pretty happy in the house they end up with.
Mhm.
Sometimes there are better homes that come on the market. I would say more often than not. So that's a really great point on your part there. And I think sometimes you just got to say like, "Hey, we've done this before. We're gonna find you something better." And even if you don't believe it, you might need to like start believing that, because if you don't, it's gonna come through. Now, knowing you, I know you fundamentally believe that like, hey, this is gonna work out. So and it's the same thing with a seller, right? A deal falls apart. If you start moping around, like, I'll tell you something off air that's pretty funny. I talk to my son about this all the time because he gets like upset and down on it. You see like the body language
Mm-hmm.
that turns people off, and especially when you're talking to them, they can hear that through the phone. And if you're showing them houses, they can definitely see it. And
yeah.
You ever met someone with bad body language?
Oh yeah.
What did you think about them?
It's tough to navigate the conversation if they're just completely ignoring or oblivious or anything.
Well, you can usually pick up on it within like seconds, and like, hey, that person's got a bad attitude, or they're negative, and people like positivity. So I think that's probably some of the best advice there that you have here. In terms of anything else here, I mean, what do you think some of these common characteristics are among these agents that are outperforming the other 80% of the market? I mean, anything else that we didn't talk about here you feel that's important to acknowledge?
I mean, I would say treating it like a 9 to 5 rather than, oh, I'm just gonna pick up a client here and there. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Like if you're not setting time aside to make calls, to set appointments, and to do those the main things that are gonna help generate business,
Mhm.
then you're walking into just a desert. Nothing's gonna happen if you don't put in the work and put in the time. Like obviously we all want something to magically spring from the well of, of everything, but that doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes it does and it's awesome, but usually with what you said about karma, if you're putting in the work and putting in the time, it's gonna come and you're gonna be benefited by that.
You definitely got to treat this like a job. I think that's one of the hardest things people don't. like I get the transition phase when you're getting started. You're working maybe two things, like trying to get into it. I was very fortunate to be able to go all in. I know you two were in the same boat,
Yeah.
but like I get the transition period. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to do this in my off time, like it, it's not going to work. Like it's not going to happen. So I think that's really great advice, Tim. So why don't we take a quick break? We're going to come back. We're going to talk all about Tim C's here and how he's been rocking and rolling in the second quarter. Next on Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements,
we
low
were
down payment
down at
options,
Ocean
and
City
first-time homebuyer programs.
this past weekend. We went like
Pre-approval
Friday
is
morning
free,
and came back
no
last
cost
night.
or commitments. For more
Um,
information, visit our
but
website at
not
mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call
I don't even know
at
if we're doing, like, I have no idea what we're doing.
610-439-8000.
I know my mom's having a little barbecue.
I'm Tom
but,
Toole of the Tom
after
Toole
that,
Sales Group at Remax
nothing
Main
really.
Line. If
Probably
you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent
Yeah,
in the greater
I know.
Philly area, I have a special offer for you.
Yeah.
Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life, and an unbeatable culture. Agents who've been with us for at least a year average
Yeah, that
30
lady
plus
earlier
sales.
was like
Even our brand
so
new agents
helpful.
average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at Real Estate Scholarship
I'm not going to let you do that.
or visit the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline at tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Get more out of your real estate career, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole. Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline.
30 seconds. Getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks.
We got
We're a
room to
local
sleep in.
Pennsylvania lender with
How
loan
that is,
officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential
Yeah, I
know what I'm talking about.
including
Oh, yeah.
first-time buyer 10 seconds. Down payment options. For your free
Tim, we're just gonna talk about your background.
610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
All right. Welcome back to Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. He's Tim C's. We all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking all about Tim here, his big second quarter, his first year in the business. This guy has been rocking and rolling, which is no surprise to me. I see him at the office all the time. So if you like what you hear, you get some value out of this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with our team about how we can help you with your real estate needs, please do so with the link in the comments. So, Tim, you've been kicking butt, very coachable, great mindset. Tell us a little bit about your background, what you were doing before real estate.
Yeah. So I always was into theater and into performance. So I went to school. Actually, I went to DeSales University for theater. So because I wanted to be an actor. Always loved that. Always enjoyed putting a performance on and kind of taking people out of the drudgery of the real world and having an escape for them. I always like to give that. But I graduated. I worked a couple of serving jobs. I got a job at the Kimmel Center in Philadelphia doing ticket sales, and just wasn't really finding satisfaction in that. I guess it wasn't. There wasn't like a real motivating factor on top of like trying to audition and stuff like that. And as we know in this business, no is a common theme, but also same with acting. But yeah, I found I found the Remax posted online. I was like, oh, this could be a cool opportunity. I talked to a couple people. They were like, yeah, you've got the personality for it. So I was like, hey, why not? I'll give it a shot. So I got my license, took the test, and in August of 23, here I am. But yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
So
awesome.
did you obviously it's a year later, so and we know people with like acting backgrounds and theater backgrounds. We have a couple people on the team like that. They can do really well. I mean, Sarah is the little known fact. You were in Billions, right? You were an extra in Billions.
No way.
You did a commercial with Meredith from The Office,
Yeah.
right? So little known fact about Sarah here. So
Very cool.
I'll save the other one for you know which one I'm talking about.
I do.
I'll do that because we're cool like that. So. But like Xander on our team obviously has an acting background. I don't think it's any surprise because there is a performance aspect to this job, which a lot of people don't get. So, did you see that translating? Did you really think about that, or you just kind of said, "Hey, I'm going to take a shot here"? Like, what went through your head?
Well, I didn't see the performance aspect translate at first. I saw it as I was getting into it, but as I was looking into real estate, I was like, oh, I really didn't know what to expect if we're going to be completely frank.
That's
but
fair.
I was in ticket sales, so I was like, oh, okay, well, it can't be too much harder, right? But getting into it and actually starting to work and then getting out to a showing for the first time, oh my gosh, I was a nervous wreck. I was literally sweating bullets. But I was, it basically is a performance. You walk in and it's just like, oh my gosh, look at this foyer. It's fantastic. Check out this living room. It's got all these great features. And then as you start to get a little bit more knowledgeable of the process and things like that, you can start to use that, you can use some of the knowledge that you have and kind of swing that into your performance. So it's like, oh, did you see that this chandelier was made by, XYZ? Or if you notice something cool in a house.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple of homes with like really cool movie memorabilia. I was just like, oh my gosh, look at that. It's an autographed picture of Darth Vader and Luke with Mark Hamill and not
Harrison Ford.
No, well, Darth Vader did not. Harrison Ford was not Darth Vader.
James Earl Jones did the Darth Vader voice.
He did the
right.
voice, but whoever was in the costume, I forget.
Nobody cares about that guy.
But like pointing out stuff like that, I find is really fun, and a lot of my clients are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. That's so cool."
Yeah.
So it's good to build rapport that way as well.
Yeah, I think it's like interesting that no matter what your background was, there's usually something you can pull from it into like the next thing that you do, and that it's not like you plan to do these different things to then get to where you are now, but you can take pieces of, just like your past experiences and kind of pull them into what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, a year later, knowing what you know now, would you have made the same decision? I mean, I'm hoping it's a yes for a lot of reasons. I mean, you're doing well, but I mean, like, what was unexpected about getting into this? Like, what were some of the surprises? Because you see these TV shows with real estate. People think it's like, oh, it's great. I'm going to go sell a bunch of $1 million properties. I'll make these huge commissions. Don't have to worry about expenses. I'll only show them one. Like there's a false narrative out there for real estate agents.
No, yeah, I completely drew a blank there.
So what surprised you about the job?
I think the amount of work that it does entail if you want to be successful. I went into the job thinking that it was like a 9 to 5. I came in and I went home at the end of the day, but I was very mistaken right off the bat.
Yeah.
Never in a million years did I think I would have to work nights and weekends.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of the biggest things. But I'm also the type of person that was very much bogged down by just not the lifestyle, but like whatever a 9 to 5 would bring. Like you come home at the end of the day and you're like pooped. You don't want to do anything. You just want to sit and be done. But after a long, hard day of being a realtor, it's like, man, I'm juiced. I'm ready for the next opportunity. I'm ready for the next thing. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I think that has motivated me a lot as well. Just knowing that the amount of work that I put in now is going to benefit my future later. Whereas if, at least for me, if I was sitting in a 9 to 5, it's just like, all right, 2 weeks I get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Well, that's like an ownership mindset, right? I mean, so I think that I mean, and you can't coach that stuff. Like people either like it or they don't.
Right.
You've had some other jobs that were kind of like. Do you feel the same way he does? Like, I mean, because I know you were selling credit card machines when we met. So I mean, it's a little different situation. But I mean, do you feel that same way now that we're getting? Like, tell us a little bit about that, how your transition was as well. Because I think it's pretty relevant here.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to use the, just some of the basic sales experience that I had before, but what I did like about coming into real estate was, well, it was more fun, and it's like
Agreed.
a bigger deal, and you're like helping somebody, and you don't have to, if you say you're a real estate agent, people know what that is. Like I felt like with my last job, it was like, oh, I do merchant service processing, and people are like, what is that? Like, it's real dumb, I don't know. But and that was also a lot of going out, getting in front of people, a lot of no's, a lot of so I was very used to rejection. Yeah, getting into real estate, I felt like it did feel like the right fit. And then the sooner you kind of embrace I'm kind of always on the clock, honestly, the easier it is. I mean, yes, carve out time for yourself that you're like, nope, not available now. But in general, if you want to be successful, when something's happening, you have to do it, or they will go to someone else, or they will be like, oh, they don't get back to me, or people will leave you very quickly and very easily until once you have that full relationship, then I feel like it's a little bit of a different story. But the sooner I just embraced it's 9 o'clock on a Friday and I'm answering this call.
Yep.
The easy and not get annoyed about it and just be like, good, something's happening. You know?
I mean, that mindset of oh, I got to take this call. It's like that could be a great call. You could have just closed the deal right then, and then your Friday night got 1,000 times better. Right.
So just kind of embrace it.
I mean, I remember vividly a couple of times where I'm out with some friends, right? and you step outside, you're out at dinner or something like that, and I'm like, I come in and I'm just smiling ear to ear, and they're like, what? Or my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, she's like, what happened? They knew there is a little bit of a rush to this, and unfortunately, if you want to be good at it, I think you just got to be available. I mean, you guys both said that. So Tim, you had an incredible second quarter here. You had 6 homes that you put under contract in the second quarter. What do you think led to that success? I mean, that's more homes than most agents sell in a year. The average agent sold 4.38 homes last year. I don't know how you do 0.38, but that's the average. What do you think led to all that? Because I know it's not something that you didn't just flip a switch come April 1st. It was a lot of work that led up to that. But you've gone ahead and literally outproduced most agents that are out there for the entire calendar year.
So I mean, putting in the work, and I think the money really is in the follow-up. If you're not following up with your clients, even if they tell you they're not ready,
someone else is.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Also, just searching, keep on lead generating. It's not gonna, like I said, the well's not gonna, just come out of nowhere. I think that it's put in the work, put in the time, and that's pretty much it.
Well said, Tim. So if people want to follow Tim, you're on Instagram. That's where we do all our follows here on the show. Let me find his handle here. It's Tim_Sees, SEES. That's where you can get in touch with him. Killer agent, someone you should definitely know if you're in the market. Sarah obviously fits that bill as well. You can follow her at Ty_TyTime. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD, at Tom Toole 3rd. And we're streaming live every single week on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So if you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and you can talk to our team with the link in the comments. That's it for this week's episode. Happy 4th of July, everybody. We'll catch you next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Awesome.
I think you're done for the day, but I got so much full shit. Good job, man. You crushed it on the show.